What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters, and welcome to the Life to Metal. Going to be doing a rock metal update. That's right, time for a rock and metal update. This one is all 12-inch vinyl, mostly metal. There's some rock stuff in here as well. Nothing too extreme. There's no death or black metal this time around, but lots of heavy metal, thrash metal, some crossover, that kind of thing. So I'm going to get right into it, starting off with the brand new Metal Church, which really enjoyed this album. This one will definitely make my top 20 of the year. Only had it for a short time, played it 3 or 4 times already, really enjoying it. New vocalist whose name is Mark Lopez. He is got that kind of gravelly voice, not unlike their first singer David Wayne. So if you're into that, those first couple albums with David Wayne, or if you're into Reverend or anything David Wayne did, you're probably going to dig this as well. It's just straight up U.S. heavy metal, power metal, whatever you want to call it, with a vocalist who just perfectly fits this band. He's their 4th vocalist overall who's actually recorded albums with them, and I'm not going to say he's the best or worst or anything like that. He's just really good, and this album is fantastic. So, great return to form after the death of their vocalist. And then, also, they just recently lost their original drummer, too. Kurt Arrington died on May 22nd this year, so just about a little less than a month ago. So, sorry, I'm going to turn this screen off because it's distracting me a little bit. Next up, this is Elegant Weapons. Brand new album. And let me pull this one out of the sleeve. Again, it's more straightforward heavy metal, a little more melodic. Some would probably even argue that it's not metal and more hard rock, and I'm not going to argue that, point, but I just think it's really, really well done. But this is Richie Faulkner's band. Of course, Richie Faulkner's been touring with Priest for years and writing with Priest, and frankly, he's helped them record some of the best music they've done. The last album that they did was spectacular with Richie Faulkner playing, guitar, and really dig his sound. So I was like, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check this out without even listening to it. Just bought it just because it was him, and glad I did. Really enjoyed it. So Elegant Weapons, Horns for a Halo, Richie Faulkner's band. This is Texas thrash metal, Devastation. This thing was just recently released. It is a double album. It's all their old demos. So you've got their Contaminated demo from '88. You got their Destiny to Death demo from '86. You got the Violent Termination demo from '86. There is it's a nice package too. There is a box version as well that came with, I think, a T-shirt, cassettes, or something like that. I didn't buy that. I just got the red vinyl version. There's the center spread, 2 LP set. I believe I got the red vinyl version. I think there's black available, and there might have been a splatter available too. And then it also comes with this really nice, kind of like a tour program kind of thing, with photos and memorabilia and that kind of thing inside of it. So there you go. Nice. It sounds great. Whoever remastered it did a good job. Everything's clean. It's you don't expect perfect audio quality. It is demos from the 80s, but they cleaned it up really well, and it sounds really good. It's very, very listenable and very enjoyable, especially if you dig that 80s thrash metal sound, and I'm a big fan of that style and, of course, of Devastation, so glad someone released this. I really wanted their first album released on vinyl too, but according to the band, it'll never happen, which is kind of a bummer. All right, might as well stick with the thrash metal scene here. This is, I was out in Georgia. We had a family event out there, a wedding, and then a big family picnic gathering the next day after that. But I also hooked up with my buddy Steve, Harmless Rebel, Steve Bodine, and him and I hit up a bunch of record stores, and this is one that I picked up. This is Head East. Excuse me, Let me try it. It's not Head East. It's Dead Heat. Dead Heat, but this is a split EP with Mind Force. This is crossover thrash metal. It's thrash metal, but it's got that punk influence to it. Both bands do. 3 songs from each. Very much, in that sound. If you're into that crossover sound, Agnostic Front, The Crucified, DRI, SOD, that kind of thing, you'll probably dig these guys too. A newer band, but this album is, I don't know what the year is on. I have no idea what the year is on this, actually. Should have looked that up before I did the video. But they're a newer band from the last 10, 20 years, so Good stuff. This was a recommendation from Steve. Glad I picked it up. He actually played me some at his house when we were hanging out in his office and dug it. So just so happened I ran across this at one record store for, what was it? Oh, it doesn't say on here anymore. It wasn't real expensive. It was like 14 bucks. And then this one here, which is their latest album, for $16.99. As you can see, it's got a little sale sticker on there, brand new. Don't see a year on here either. This is actually the album he spun for me. I haven't even cracked this one open yet, so let's crack it open now. Take a look at it. I have listened to that split EP several times, but this one here I just haven't had a chance to really spin yet. But I can say I really liked what I heard over at Steve's. So I know a lot of people like to keep the shrink wrap on. I do not. I tear the shrink wrap off and I put it in a sleeve. Shrink wrap is not good for records. Why? Well, for several reasons. Over time, the ink and the chemicals in the plastic can stick together, and when you take the plastic off, it rips the ink off. I've seen that happen more than one time. Also, shrink wrap over time can shrink more, and it can damage your records and warp your records. I've seen lots of like 80s records that where still in the shrink, and you receive them and they're warped. So that's just the way it is. So that's why I rip it off. I'd rather have a nice clean sleeve on there. But anyhow, classic, thrash art. And let's see here. Inner sleeve. Picture of the band. And I'm trying to look for a year on this thing. Should have looked that up too, but I didn't. And there's no year on here anywhere. Let's see, just out of curiosity, is there maybe a year on the center of it label? 2021. So, like I said, it was one of the newer albums, so it's not that old at all. Yellow vinyl. Really cool stuff. Like the crossover sound. I know a lot of people aren't into the newer bands doing that classic sound. I dig it, so whatever. I mean, I dig bands like, Havoc and Vindicator and Avenger of Blood and all those kind of bands that are, they're newer bands. I say newer, some of them are 20 years old or older now, doing that classic thrash metal sound. And Exodus, Temple of the Damned. I've had this one on, I've got a couple different versions on CD. I got the double version with the live album on it. I got the original pressing of this thing. I've had it on CD forever. I just never ran across the vinyl for a decent price, so finally found a copy and picked it up. I love this album. I think this was a great return to form. Steve Zilsa back in the band. Songs like War is My Shepherd, Blacklist, Forward March, Impaler. I love the version of Impaler. They also do Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap on here. I really think this is a great album. I really, really enjoyed it. Love the artwork as well. I know I'm getting quite a bit of a glare on here, but that, I don't know, Beauty and the Beast looking guy right there playing the organ is pretty cool looking, kind of creepy, but I dig it. So my copy is on black vinyl, none more black. This is another one I picked up when I was out in Georgia. This actually picked this up in a CD store. I think it was a CD warehouse. I was surprised there still was a CD warehouse, but that CD warehouse was packed full of people, so they do CD and vinyl there, but their CD selection is way bigger than their vinyl selection. But they picked this one up for like $15. It's used, and it's got one minor flaw in that it looks like the front cover got a little bit of a ding, as you can see if I can get the glare right, and you'll be able to see there it is, see the bend right there. But other than that, the vinyls, it looks like it's never been played, so I'm assuming it's probably a brand new album. It still has a shrink on it and everything, and it just had a ding on it, so they were selling it cheap. Fine with me. Has a little ding, ain't going to bother me. It's going to play just fine on my turntable. German power metal. Some people call these guys a Christian band. Maybe they are. I don't know. I just know them as a power metal band. I've heard them before, like them, and I never owned this particular album. I just picked it up knowing a little bit about them and knowing that the songs I did hear I liked. So if you guys know anything about Sinbreed, are they a Christian band? Maybe they are. Like I said, I haven't really looked deep into them. So, but do enjoy that German power metal sound, Brainstorm and that kind of thing, Halloween. So, alright, so next up, let's see, we got more metal in here. Yeah, more thrash, more metal, another new release. This is the new Enforcer. I've heard some negative comments about this album. I don't know why. There is a single that was released that's a little more commercial than is normal for them, but overall, this album is great. There's a couple songs in here that, really push the boundaries of like speed metal on here too. It's just exactly what I want from Enforcer. Great old school heavy metal. Again, one of these newer bands, although Enforcer, what's this, their 4th, 5th, 6th album? I don't remember anymore. And they've been around for quite a long time, and they just continue to put out great heavy metal. I mean, if you like stuff like Judas Priest, you know, that classic 70s, 80s Judas Priest, you're probably going to dig Enforcer. It's right, you know, it's right in that pocket. So this album is called what is this album called? Oh, Nostalgia? Yeah, Nostalgia. There you go. On the bottom right there. I was looking right at it and didn't see it. All right. That one will probably make my top list for 2023 as well. We'll see. It's been a good year for metal, man. There's a lot of good stuff coming out. This one I already have an original pressing of, but I got this one cheap, and I was really curious to hear the new mastering, and not only mastering, but it was pressed at half speed. So the classic half speed mastered and pressed on red marble vinyl, which is cool that they, you know, they remastered it. It's cool that they half speed pressed it and all that kind of stuff to get the best sound you possibly could. Why they didn't just put it on black vinyl, which has the best possible sound quality, I don't know. But in any case, not a big deal. I mean, I don't mind colored vinyl, but I thought it sounded good, but I didn't compare it to the original yet. I've only played it once, and I was basically listening to it while I was working, so I wasn't like, you know, intently listening for anything big, but from what I heard, it sounded pretty good. It does have a picture sleeve inside of it. I will be taking it out of here and putting it into a different sleeve, but you can see the red the red vinyl with the black marbling in it. Cool stuff, man. I love Overkill. I haven't really been buying up any of their reissues, just because I've already got most of the, you know, I got most of the stuff on the original pressing, so I'm not really necessarily looking to buy them again. But I love this particular album, so I was really curious to hear it, and because it was really good priced, I just jumped on top of it. So nice little hype sticker as well. So Overkill, Years of Decay, Time to Kill, Elimination, I Hate, Nothing to Die For, Playing with Spiders, Skull Crusher, Birth of Tension, Who Tends to Fire, The Years of Decay, and Evil Never Dies. There you go. All right, now we're getting into some, well, I guess there's one more here. This is a compilation. I actually have owned this one for years and years and years. A long time. But my copy was really beat up from the day I received it to the point that I put it to the side and never actually shuffled it into my collection because it was just not in good enough shape, and I didn't want to keep it. However, I didn't want to throw it away either. I don't know why. I still have it sitting over there. I just need to throw it away. It's just not in good shape. But the reason I kept it for as long as I did is because the cover was in pretty good condition. So I was like, if I find a copy where the cover's beat up and the vinyl's good, I'll just swap the covers out. That's the reason I kept it. Well, now I have a copy that the cover's good and the vinyl is near mint. So very cool. I like this compilation. It's basically all the bands that were signed to Atlantic in the mid to late 80s. I think this thing came out in like 87 or 88. 87. So you've got Anthrax, NFL, you've got Ace Frehley, Strangers in Strangeland, Kicks, Midnight Dynamite, Malice, Sinister Double, Manowar, Black Wind, Fire and Steel, Overkill, Wrecking Crew, Raven, The Savage and the Hungry. Great track off of Life's a Bitch. Sabotage, Hall of the Mountain King, Ball of the Mountain King, Sabotage, Hall of the Mountain King, Testament, Apocalyptic City, and White Lion, All You Need Is Rock and Roll. So there you go. It's a great variety. I mean, you've got straightforward heavy metal from bands like Manowar and Raven and Malice. You've got some thrash from Anthrax and Overkill and Testament. And then you've got a couple of more melodic, you know, we call them metal back in the 80s, but more melodic stuff from White Lion and Kicks and Ace Frehley. So, Power Chords compilation, Volume 1. I wonder if there's ever a Volume 2. Never looked for that. Next up, let's see, do we have any more metal? Nope, the rest of this stuff is rock or hard rock. So, 2 from Joe Perry. I've finally scored a mint Japanese pressing of the very first Joe Perry. This is Let the Music Do the Talking. I love this album. A lot of these songs could have been on, you know, an Aerosmith album back in 78, 79, but of course, Joe left the band and formed his own band. Later on, Aerosmith, on Done With Mirrors, re-recorded Let the Music Do the Talking. But I had grown so accustomed and loved this album so much. By the time Aerosmith version came out, I do like that version too. But the original is always going to be the best, and that's the case here too. But there's not a bad song on this one, in my opinion. Conflict of Interest, Discount Dog, Shooting Star, Break Song, Rockin' Train, The Mist is Rising, Ready on the Firing Line, and Life at a Glance. I like this album so much. This is one of those albums, whenever I see a copy for a decent price, I'll buy it. It doesn't matter that I already have 2 or 3 copies of it, and I'll give them away to friends. Matter of fact, my buddy Aaron, Metal Theologian, I think I've sent him 2 already. But I send copies to people all the time because I just think it's such a great and underrated album from him. Finally available on vinyl, this is the Joe Perry's latest solo album. I think this is a fantastic album. It's him back to his roots, just playing that raw, raunchy rock and roll, a bit bluesy here and there, but not really. I mean, it's not all that far off from what you get here. Just, you know, raw, heavy rock and roll like Aerosmith did in the 70s. So, good album. This is the Newberry Comics exclusive version with a red and white swirl vinyl. Limited edition of 1,000. I don't know how many copies are pressed overall, but there's apparently only 1,000 of the red, white swirl pressed. All right. This is classic garage rock from Detroit. You know, back in the days of, you know, the Amboy Dukes and Alice Cooper and all those bands from Detroit that were touring back then. This is Frigid Pink. These guys were probably most known for their cover. See, I think it's on this album. They did a cover of House of the Rising Sun. It is on this album. And it's probably their most known song. It was a single, but this album did pretty well for them. It's, you know, your classic garage rock from back in the day, you know, MC5 and that kind of thing. Just loud rock and roll. And I really like this album. I got several singles from them. I've heard this album a bazillion times. Used to own it back in the day. My buddy Trog is a big fan of this album. He actually has a couple copies of this one. I'm framed on his wall. And for some reason, I just never find a copy in good enough condition. You know, original pressing in good enough condition. Usually there's so much ring wear. This has got a little bit of ring wear on the top. It's not too bad, but it's overall pretty clean, and the vinyl is really clean. It's just, there's so much dynamics to this kind of music, and, you know, there's these soft parts, these hard parts. When you got a lot of popping and crackling in there, it's just unenjoyable to listen to. So glad to find a really clean copy, and I got it for a good price, so glad to finally have this one in my vinyl collection. Frigid Pink. Same thing with this one. I mean, my comments are identical on this one. This is Glass Harp, late 60s. People call them prog rock, but they were just, you know, that 60s style rock and roll. And really, really like this album. I have it on CD. A buddy of mine sent it to me. I've known and, you know, heard this thing for decades. This is a band that features Phil Keaggy on guitar and vocals. Phil Keaggy, of course, had a hugely successful solo career. But John's, who else was on here? Dan Pacheco and, gosh, what was the other guy's name? Actually, I can just read the hype sticker on here, if I can read it. Blue on Black. Not easy to read. Adventurous rock trio Glass Harp formed in Ohio in 1968 by guitarist vocalist Phil Keaggy, drummer John Safara, and bassist Steve Marcolin. Marcolin. There you go. Who was soon replaced by Dan Pacheco. Or Paccio? I don't know. Pecchio, Paccio, I think. Anyhow, after topping a battle of the bands, producer Louis, these names, Mernstein signed them to Decca Records for this unusually diversive debut LP comprising country rock, prog rock, boogie rock, Christian rock, folk rock, and more. I don't know what style Christian rock is, but cool. Finger-picking genius Phil Keaggy is major creative force, though Pacheco... Why do I keep saying Pacheco? Paccio and Sfara are also great players whose vocal contributions and the range aid to the range. Full of surprises, this long overdue reissue is highly recommended for all discerning rock fans. Wow, I did a horrible job reading that. It was really difficult to read. Probably shows better on screen than it does here. Blue on black, not easy to read. But regardless, that's a good description. You know, mixture of prog rock, boogie rock, southern rock, country rock, that kind of thing. And great guitar playing from Phil Keaggy. Now, this thing, you could find used copies all over the place. I see them in stores. You know, when I was in Georgia, picked up a couple of different glass harp, and they were really expensive. And you open them up, and they look like someone played frisbee with them, and they're still expensive. And I'm like, This again is very dynamic music. It's got these very mellow, parts, and then it's got these hard rocking parts, and it just doesn't sound good when it's got a lot of crackling and popping in it. And so I've always wanted a really clean copy. So nice to have a brand new pressing of it because it sounds perfect. No crackling, no noise. It sounded great. So if you're into that, late '60s style music, check out this Glass Harp album. I'm not sure. Phil Keaggy did go on to have a very successful solo career. I have a lot of his albums. Love his instrumental stuff. So there you go. And that's it. That is my 12-inch vinyl update for June of 2023. I appreciate you all watching. God bless. Stay strong.